Good afternoon. We're in the Museum Batteria Vettor Pisani. This is a coastal battery built before the First World Conflict for the defense of the city of Venice. After the restoration in 2017, it became Museum of the First World War. This is the last presentation of a series of 5 meetings called The Great War in a Nutshell. Today's presentation is about the armament of the Pisani Battery. The Vettor Pisani Battery is one of the 4 coastal batteries of the littoral and a part of a whole defensive system intended for the coastal and anti-aircraft defense of Venice. It was built in the first years of the 20th century. There are 2 theories concerning its date of construction. The first theory indicates the years between 1909 and 1912. The second and more recent theory states, as a result of new archive researches, that the battery was built between 1905 and 1908. Here, during the Great War, was deployed the 5th Company of the Standing Army, that is, personnel of the 1st Regiment of Fortress Artillery of the Royal Army. The main armament was constituted by 6 280L Howitzers, and it was still of 19th century concept. In fact, the Howitzer range of 10.5 kilometers was a lot less than the range of the other 3 batteries of our territory. The artilleries were placed under bed on circular emplacements, and the barrels were oriented towards the sea, which was, at that time, just behind the terraplane of sand and clay that protected the battery from the enemy naval fire. A howitzer is a piece of artillery used mainly for firing projectiles at a high trajectory, and it could fire also against non-directly visible targets. The projectiles weighed between 200 and 220 kilograms, therefore it was quite difficult to handle them. To make their handling inside the battery easier, they were hooked to some tackles, namely to some devices used to lift the loads that consisted of pulleys attached to chains, so you could reduce the necessary strength for their lifting. These projectiles were handled inside the battery by using the Decoville, a narrow gauge railway invented in the mid-1800s by a French company, used by many armies in both world conflicts. Its wagons were used to stock up the projectiles in the ammunition dumps of the batteries during the battle. The artillerymen in charge received the firing coordinates from the telemetry towers of the Pisani battery itself, which were equipped with ranging instruments. The artilleries were provided with mechanical optical instruments which made it possible to aim at a corresponding point of the received coordinates. The 11-meter-high telemetry towers were provided with chronometer and panoramic sights, which were used to estimate the distances of the selected targets through the so-called triangulation system. Along the wall for the close defense on the north side lined are 138 loopholes for rifle. Very likely the rifles used were the model 91 Mannlicher Carcano and the model 7087 Vettel Vitali, then followed by the model 7087-16. The model 7087 Vettel Vitali, with a 4-round magazine, caliber 10.35 mm, was followed by the model 7087-16, to which the barrel had been adapted for a caliber 6.5 mm, with a modified magazine to use the same magazines of the Model 91 rifle, which was part of the equipment of the territorial militia. The Model 91 Mannlicher Carcano was fitted with 6-round magazine, caliber 6.5 mm. It was the service weapon of the Italian army, adopted to replace the Model 7087 Vettel Vitali. At the 2 extremities of the battery, there are 2 rifle posts, or caponiers, namely 2 fortified structures that likely come out of the fortified structure itself but link with it, generally intended for the defense of the moat of building walls that at the time were equipped with Colt Browning machine guns. The machine gun Colt Browning Model 1895-14, also called potato digger because of its lever mechanism that lightly touched the ground, is an American machine gun realized by the Colt Manufacturing Company. Of the 100 Colt machine guns arrived in Italy in June 1916, ordered 1 year before, 40 were assigned to the 3rd Army that worked in our territory. A part was assigned to the units of the Navy Regiment, active in the defense of the Piave River's mouth. Some others even installed on the mast torpedo-armed motorboats. The Italian models were readapted for the Italian 6.5 per 52 mm ordnance cartridge to get around the difficulties of ammunition supplies, and the cooling system was changed from air cooling system to water cooling system. Its use was limited to defensive or fixed stationing due to the complex maintenance. The machine gun was fed by a 250-round canvas strip. After the Great War, the howitzers, by then obsolete, were replaced by 4 anti-aircraft 76-40 cannons, which were widely used in the First World War, and many pieces were precisely used for the defense of the lagoon.